Hello and welcome to my channel. Today we are going to look at a video about forest farming or food forest. I like to watch other ideas than the basic farming as well. So I guess we just get started. I got two different videos. Let me start with this one.
Well, we're all quite familiar with forests and forests as an ecosystem with great diversity of plants, animals and fungi all harmonizing together and interreacting in many niches and layers designed by nature, maintained as a system in perfect balance. Well, imagine that as a system that produces food. The majority of the elements in that system being productive. That's a
very nice idea if you have your own big garden, I think. I don't see it will be cost efficient in the long run. Who knows?
a food forest. So by understanding how nature designs forest systems so they're self-maintaining, self-replicating, we can model that system with productive species so that we can produce food in the most sustainable way with the minimum amount of input for the maximum amount of output anywhere in the world. That's a food forest system that we can actually design and work with in long-term and permanent
anywhere in the world. Yeah, but oranges do not grow in Norway. So I'm a bit curious about the more northern countries, what kind of food forest it will be. A little bit more boring kind of food, I guess.
situations. All forests have layers. So you start off with a canopy layer, that's the top of the forest. Then you have understory layers, and under those you have bush and shrub layers, going down to herbaceous layers, which are non-woody plants. And then you have a root yield. You have plants that actually have large starchy roots. And then on the ground you have ground covers, and you also have a vertical layer of climbers. Now all forests have those layers. In the tropics you can have emergent palms and understory palms, and you can have slight variations in different climates, but you have a basic set of layers that occupy all the space. When we design a food forest, we put that layering system into action to our benefit for production and maintenance through function. Here in the subtropics, you have tamarillo as an understory, and you have taro and cocoa yam and cassava as a root yield. That changes from climate to climate.
Yeah, I understand that, but I haven't heard of any of those plants, I think.
Then you have understory productive trees like feijoa, guava and citrus.
Those two I know, citrus and banana.
And large herbs like bananas. And then you have support species like the ice cream bean and the tipuana tipu and casuarina. They're large trees, but they continue to support the forest by cycling nutrient. You also have understory nitrogen fixers like the acacias and the leucaena and the cassia and albizia species. They're all really good, fast functioning, fast carbon pathways that fix nitrogen and can be chopped to the ground for mulch as the space that they're occupying can be taken up by the productive species. Here we have rose apples, mulberry, we have large legume trees, and we have large fruit trees. So we have jackfruit, the largest fruit in the world. We have bunya pine, a very large nut, but we also have pecan, which is a nut tree here that's also deciduous, loses its leaves in winter. Then we have your classic mango as a large overstory tree. These are all space occupiers in a system that's incredibly stable when all the layers are complete and occupied.
Okay. I guess it's pretty easy to do that in a warmer climate. But the next video will show a little bit more about the colder climate as well. Same climate as I am from. At least that's what the title says. I haven't seen the film yet.
We can plant food forests by planting support species at the same time as the fruit trees and managing the support species to shelter and boost the productive species. Or we can just plant the pioneer support species until we get a stable canopy. But we don't want to go the other way round. We don't want to start with the productive species and work hard with lots of inputs to keep them in a healthy state. The support species do the work for us. It can be up to 95% of the mass in the early years are the legume trees and the mulch producing trees that produce the biomass. We prune these, and these trees shed nitrogen to the soil because they have relationships. They're classic pioneers, and most are nitrogen fixing species. In other words, they have rhizobium bacterial partners in the soil that take nitrogen from the air in the soil and bring it into their plant bodies. And they then eventually die, and that nitrogen is added to the soil. Now we can speed that process up. We can sacrifice those species with good timing after we've put them into relative placement. So,
sorry about that noise. I think the neighbors make a little bit of noise in the background.
Over time, the species we sacrifice open up opportunities for our productive species. They shelter and support and provide the fertilizer, the soil conditioning, and the humus. So we stack the system in space, but we prune in relation to time. So we wait for the time of year when there is more rainfall than evaporation. After the period where it's been dry and the evaporation is higher than rainfall, there we need shade, and we leave the shade up. But as soon as the rainfall gets heavier and higher than the evaporation, we can start to cut and open up light avenues and space for our productive species to take up the gap. Now, over time, when we get to establishment, we've got less and less mass in pioneer support species and more mass in the productive species. And
how many years will that take? It's like starting if you're 5 years old, and then maybe by the time you're dead, it will be like a 100% food forest.
we end up with a reversal of mass. We have 95% productive and only 5% in support. So we don't just stack in space, we stack in time, and we speed up the process. These legume support trees that have been cut off as pollards may look a bit harsh, but they very quickly start to regrow. You can see here little shoots coming everywhere, and they're all the same. With the regrowth, we get a beautiful shade. Now that's handy in the hot time of year when we've got a lot of evaporation over rainfall, and it's actually a nurse crop for your fruit trees when they're young. Later on, we may cut them more regularly and keep feeding the soil, and eventually we may cut them out at a lower cut. They'll shoot a few more times. we'll keep adding that mulch, and eventually we'll cut them at ground level and not allow them to grow leaves so they actually die out. It's our choice. We're actually manipulating the forest so that it grows in our favour towards productive species. We change the way it grows in our favour. So here you see the pollard regrowth, and in just a few months in the subtropics you can gain all this wood. Now it might be once a year in a temperate climate, once every 6 months, every 3 months in the tropics. You're working with the cycles of the forest within climate, so you're feeding the soil with a fallen forest and you're designing the way the forest falls. We can use animals to help us establish food forests. We can graze with larger animals, then they have to be out of the way because we're putting in small plants. We can put in poultry, chickens and ducks, and they can prepare the ground. And then later on, when the trees are up, we can bring in maintenance cycles of chickens and ducks to speed the system up. And that way we can use our animals to gain an advantage while they're productive for us at the same time.
A lot of books.
I'm sitting in a food forest that's been recovered by ducks. This section here was well out of maintenance. I had quite a lot of long clumping grasses and unwanted plants we call weeds. We've put a fence around it, a temporary fence, electric fence, but we haven't even electrified it. We put in 100 or so Muscovy ducks. In just over 3 weeks, they've totally changed the area. They've eaten most of the green material. They've flattened out the grasses. They've manured the ground. They've conditioned the soil. And it's ready for replanting with the support species and interplants and fruit trees where there's gaps. Taking this time advantage,
I really like the idea, but I cannot see it will be productive enough for, let's say, everyone, to feed everyone. But I do understand how he wants to use the forest and natural elements to create the best way to grow food.
Process of dynamic event. We can now jump in and put it.
It's more like a natural way of growing food, and we need to harvest it like we did back in the gathering and hunting kind of way, I guess. So we step back a few thousand years.
In a whole assembly of plants that'll bring it to a diverse interactive stability and possibly go right through to maintenance without ever needing this event to happen again. This is taking time advantage from an animal interaction to a replant, which we can do any time we slip up on our maintenance. Just 3 weeks ago, the ducks were here. Now it's recovered. We've planted in the support species and extra fruit trees. We've established extra ground covers, and we've got a little footpath surrounded by wood prunings, branch prunings going right the way through on contour. It's on its way, and it's probably going into a permanent stable system from here on in.
Sounds good. Let's have a look at the other one. Oh yeah, by the way, this was from Discover Permaculture with Geoff Lawton. If you want to see the whole video yourself, let's go for the Nordic version of this. Nordic food forest by the channel Inspiratoriet. I put the link down below. Names and pronouncing.
Nice. Welcome back to the food forest. It's been, I think, almost 2 years to the day that since we made a sort of a video where we just walked through the food forest. And now it's almost 9 years old. This fall it will be 9 years old since we started on a bare field. And 2 years ago we made a video where we just walked through the pathways and had a look at what was growing and what was beautiful. And this year I think I would just like to do the same, invite you inside, and we will have a look at this crazy growth that has been happening even in the last 2 years. I'll make a link to the last video from 2 years ago so that you can maybe get a feel of how the garden has changed and how it has sort of filled out. That's very much the experience I'm getting. So just to give you a few facts, it's about 3,000 square meters, and so almost 9 years old. We started on a bare field with lots of weeds and self-seeded trees and stuff like that. So it's been a long and really interesting process. And I think we should just go inside, and then I'll point out some things that I find interesting and beautiful and very successful right now. Maybe also.
So 9 years old forest, a food forest. Yeah. So let's say I would start on now. I would be about 44. All right. But can see
things that are not working so well.
Can see feet from it.
So we bow to the mother when we enter through the rose gate.
Oh. Good.
And I think what always strikes me when I enter the gate is that this feels like a different climate.
You can see it's not as high as the older video. So 9 years, and it's not even like very big trees.
Even this Tuna sinensis is huge. I mean, it's impressive growth in less than 9 years, and everything is sort of filling out.
That tree that grows like crazy. In Norway, at least, they get very big, very fast.
Out and is thriving. Mostly, a few things are not happy here, but some nectarines, they don't want to grow here. But other than that, I think actually
nectarines? I would not have thought they would grow there now. Zone 8, 9. I would not even have tried, I think.
It looks like everything is pretty pleased, and so am I. So this is the end of June 2022, and as you can see, crazy flowering is happening right now. We have a Nepalese pepper, and this pathway is where we grow our 3 different varieties of figs. So there's a brown turkey, and this is sultane, and
okay, they grow in Norway. Interesting.
Another one over here with the large figs is Dalmatia. And I also want to show you that the roses are so happy in the garden. I never feed them, but I just let them grow wild in between all the edibles. And I think this combination of ornamentals and edibles is just making me happy for days.
Rose bottles, you can use those as well. Anyway, I have some roses in the garden, and when I cut them back, they are the same height again in the same year. They grow very, very fast. You have one of those wild ones, I guess.
And as you can see, maybe sensing that I did not have time to manage some of the pathways, so everything is sort of filling out. And this rose, of course, is not meant to sort of block everything, but I'm hoping my husband can make his way through without being sort of caught up in in all the growth. This is very much a principle in the garden. It's plants before people, and all this pollen from this beauty is also wonderful. You can see how the pollen is just going everywhere. Anyway, I seriously need to cut back some things, but I so enjoy this lushness. It makes me so happy. And insects are always buzzing, and there's always food to gather. And the fennel is super happy in here. It'll grow to be another half meter maybe, so these are quite impressive, and they really like this spot.
I tried to grow fennel in Norway. Did not work as well as I hoped. I guess it was too open then.
I also thought I would show you this sea buckthorn sea berry. It has so many berries on, this female, and I'll show you again once they ripen. They are so delicious, and also really happy here. And we've entered the berry season, something I always long for. So these are the first cherries. These are a light colored variety. I don't know.
Psalm 8:9 I share. All those plants that I see.
I don't know the exact variety. I've got it somewhere in some of my papers, but we eat it, and that's the whole point of it. So it's delicious, and along with lots of strawberries, lots of woodland strawberries, and raspberries, then it's the start of the berry season. Yummy. And maybe you can get a feel of this. It feels like a forest, and I think that is so lovely. Maybe you can also sense that this pathway has been claimed by the raspberries, and I'm going to let them ripen, and I'm going to pick them, and then I'm going to really cut back on this so that we can reclaim this pathway. It is looking quite lovely as it is, and I think this safari feel is quite wonderful. So let's go up here, and then.
Yeah. I would love to have a garden like that.
We can have a look around like we did in the last video, and sensing how much everything has sort of filled out in the food forest. So it's both the trees and the bushes have matured, of course, but it's also all the ground layers are more mature and more filled out, and I
Internet. Oh. Come on. Yeah, it starts again. Yeah.
something I think is super,
Sorry about
super
that, guys.
lovely and important.
What happened to the quality?
So another patch of raspberries and some roses and some insect plants. Lots of fennel again. I mean, I'm allowing everything to self-seed. Some places I remove some of the stuff because otherwise I would have only fennel and chicory and a few other things.
Yeah, it's a food forest, so it's supposed to take the fennel and use it. Otherwise you lose some food as well. But you know, you can take like at least 80%.
So I'm trying to find a balance between making space for what I want growing and also making space for what is self-seeding here. So if it's self-seeding, it means it's thriving, and that means less work for me.
Yeah, very nice. Even if the quality goes down, I don't get that. 144. Go back to HD. 144, that's very low. Let's try again. That's better, isn't it? I don't mind it, it's not HD, but 144, that's very, very low.
Hard to get by. Are you managing okay? I pass here this bit. I pass several times a day because
Okay.
I love.
Sorry, I don't really want to keep going if internet doesn't want to work with me. But we get the idea, I guess. They don't really show what they can do with the food in the forest or the plants, because especially in Norway, it's like maybe all the videos they do, they just show what's around. But I've seen a few plants you can use to make tea, to eat as well, of course, all the berries. But my question is it enough to feed at least yourself? Because this does 0.4 hectares. I don't remember anymore, but around that. So is that enough? That's my biggest question, actually. Do you guys have a food forest yourself or any other comments on this video? Please let me know. I don't have much experience with it. I would love to grow a food forest back home if I got the time, but I don't really. Then I really need to cut down on my hours at work. Maybe even maybe I can do that if the videos on YouTube are liked and subscribed. So please do that for me, and I will keep going and making videos. Thank you for watching today, and sorry about the lagging. It's terrible internet connection at the moment. I guess there are a lot of people who are using internet at the moment. What are you doing about it? Not much. So thank you for watching, and I see you next time.